A judge has temporarily blocked the Pentagon's attempt to designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk. The AI firm, which is a contractor of the U.S. government, sued the Trump administration earlier this month, saying the designation by the Defense Department is political retaliation and a violation of its First Amendment rights. The dispute stems from a disagreement during contract negotiations over how the U.S. military could use Anthropic's AI model, Claude. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins me now. And Jessica, why is this a First Amendment issue?
So what the judge said is that we have the government retaliating against Anthropic based on what they've said, and actually the worst type of First Amendment violation based on their views. Nicole, as you know, when it comes to the First Amendment, we are protected against government action. The government action we're most worried about is when the government says, don't speak on certain subjects or don't speak based on certain viewpoints. What Anthropic, again, is saying is that this smacks of retaliation. Labeling them as a supply chain risk is exactly what it looks like when the government says, we don't like your perspective, so now we're going to take an action against you. And the judge, at least in this temporary hearing, agreed and therefore issued a temporary restraining order. She said it looks like this is a classic case of, I'm of course paraphrasing, First Amendment retaliation.
And so what happens next?
So what happens next is that both sides will obviously continue arguing. This is just the first part of the case where Anthropic went to court and said, we need essentially emergency relief. But that doesn't mean that the case is over. The federal government will argue that there are national security risks, that there are legitimate reasons completely separate and apart from Anthropic's viewpoints and what they say for why they are labeling Anthropic a supply chain risk. Anthropic will say there are so many other things you could have done. You could have just said, we're not going to make a contract with you. Anthropic, of course, will also continue to make its First Amendment argument and say, this is all about you just not liking what we were saying. And there's plenty in the public record, they'll argue to indicate that. So what happens next? They'll continue to make their case as the case continues. Again, this was just a temporary restraining order. It just pushes pause while the parties can make their additional arguments.
And what's the broader implication of this case?
Great question. I think the broader implication really is about the power of, yes, this administration, but any other administration to take steps against a company and to determine whether or not those steps are being taken because they don't like what the company is saying or because there's a legitimate problem with the company. Again, I think what it really boils down to is what is the federal government's motivation here? Is it we had a dispute and we don't like what you're saying, we don't like the views that you're propagating, or is it we think there is a problem with your product? Obviously, this has implications far beyond just AI and Anthropic, and this is a situation that happens with respect to a lot of administrations and government contractors, private contractors.
All right, Jessica Levinson, thank you so much.
Thank you.